our spring vegetable garden is well underway. So while it's not perfectly weeded or even perfectly planted, I thought that I would give you a tour of our very normal homestead garden. Let's go. Now, before I get completely carried away talking about the garden and all the things we have going on, I do think that we should talk a little bit about where I'm located, because that is important when you're taking gardening advice from anybody. Because I think even though we're all in different climates and different zones, and you can gain good wisdom from just about anybody, it is important to know what zone and area we're talking about. Because like I said in the beginning, my garden is well underway and it's only April. In fact, I actually need to get these sweet potatoes in the ground today, and sweet potatoes are a heat-loving plant. So I am in zone 9B. So our spring season actually starts in January and our fall season actually starts in like September. So it's a little bit different for us, but we're growing pretty basic stuff here. So even if you're not ready in your area yet, I still think that a lot of what we're growing here is going to be applicable to you here in like a month or so. I have around 800 square feet of growing space in this garden, and let's talk about the actual containers, because these are not raised beds, even though they may kind of look like it. These are containers. They have a bottom. So these are IBC totes that are cut in half. Some of them are a little shorter, but they're about cut in half. And they have holes drained in the bottom for drainage. So this is something that was already on our property. Now, while I really like them and I think that they're great, somebody's got to say that you can just grow in the ground. You do not need a raised bed. You do not need the perfect container unless your property is flooding or there is some reason why you really can't grow in the ground. You can, and you don't need this, but this is what we have. We have these IBC totes, but I really think that's just enough chattering. Let's just get into it and I'll show you stuff as we go. So let me give you a quick overview. We have these blue containers here, this metal raised bed here, and then we have 4 rows of these IBC totes. And these are where I mainly grow. And these other beds are really just extra space that either my kids use or that maybe just doesn't really produce as well for me. This bed here is one that doesn't have irrigation hooked up to it. And I actually talked in a video all about my lazy girl gardening tips that you don't really need irrigation. You should start with hand watering. But I do have 4 kids. This was their bed for some cosmos seeds. This whole thing is supposed to be planted out with cosmos, but because they haven't been consistently watering it, we're probably going to have to replant. We'll do some cosmos again, or maybe some dwarf sunflower. But that's why this bed looks so bad. It's for my kids, and my kids have decided they don't want to consistently water. Over here, we have a bunch of weeds. Now, we did have some potatoes. So we had planted some grocery store potatoes in these, and they actually did okay. We got a couple potatoes from them, but now they're empty. And to be honest, they need to be topped up with some soil and some compost. Now, I do have a bunch of soil over there by the pig pen, so we can add some to this. But I think I'm just going to, again, do cosmos and sunflowers here. We just got some honeybees, and the pollinators love this stuff. So this is just going to be flowers. So a lot of what you're going to see in this garden tour is bush beans. I love them. They are my staple crop. Like if we are having a vegetable for dinner, 4 times out of the week, it's probably going to be beans. So we've got bunches of bush beans and pole beans. This bed is doing fantastic. We're starting to get some little beans on this bed. And for this size IBC tote, I want to say it's about 3 feet by 4 feet. Don't quote me, just look up the dimensions of a regular IBC tote. But usually for these beds, I have some irrigation in the middle. I have just a little nozzle and it kind of sprays out in a 360 pattern. And I aim to do about 8 bush bean plants in one of these beds. So if I can get them all to germinate, that is a pretty good amount in each bed that I do them in. And these are just your typical blue lake. That is my favorite. I have some different varieties of pole beans just because I ran out of seeds. But if I'm doing bush or pole beans, I do prefer the blue lake. They're not super fancy, but they do perform really well for me. And so moving over here to the next one, we've got more bush beans. This is kind of my thing that I am just going to plop in a bed if I have extra space. And I can see that we've got some nutrient deficiencies here. This is probably just a lack of fertilizer. If you follow me on Instagram or Facebook at all, you know that diluted urine is one of my favorite things along with rabbit manure. So I would just put that at the base of these plants and I bet that these would perk up really well. And then back here we have an indeterminate tomato and it is growing up our cattle panel trellis. I can talk about that in a minute. But these, I'm going to be honest with you, I will try to figure out the varieties of the tomatoes as we go, but I actually don't know on all of them. And the reason I don't really know the varieties of the tomatoes unless I still have the little label in the soil is because this was the first year in many years that I have decided to buy my starts from just a big box store. I got some of my tomatoes and some of my peppers locally, and then some of them I just went to Home Depot and I got them. And I know for some that is a big no-no, but I had my 4th son last year. We added a milk cow last year, and it has been a big adjustment. So for me, honestly, buying all of my starts for my tomatoes and my peppers was a huge game changer, and I'm probably going to continue. It is definitely not as cost effective, but it has been so nice in just enjoying my garden this year and not feeling overworked because I wasn't dealing with all of the seeds and all of that, all the seed starts. So if I don't know the variety, that's why. But these are our cattle panel trellises, and I love these. We've got them on 2 of our rows. Well, we actually have them going over all 4 rows, but we're going to be taking some of those out on the last 2, and I'll show you why. But we love these things. I grow pole beans up them. I use them to support our indeterminate tomatoes, and they are fantastic. You can also vine cucumbers up them. You could do some watermelon up them as long as you supported the melons as they got bigger. These are absolutely fantastic. It's just such an inexpensive trellis, and it's really nice when they start to fill out and go all the way over. It's just very, very beautiful. So we really love that. And moving along, we have got more bush beans, and I actually filled in some of these areas with cosmos. Now, I had planned to have pole beans go all the way up this trellis as well, but they just didn't germinate, and it is what it is. We do our best, and then we just let it go. So we've got a bunch of cosmos in here that'll be really beautiful, as well as some more bush beans. And then again, look, more bush beans. I'm telling you, I plant them everywhere. So we've got some bush beans over here. Now, another thing that we did this year that you'll see later too is we added some perennials into the garden beds. And so this is a rose bush. I have absolutely no idea what I'm doing. This was full of roses when I first planted it, and now it is not. Maybe it's just not the time for it, or maybe I'm really bad at this. If you have any rose tips, leave those below. But we did add 2 yellow rose bushes to the garden, and that's what this is, as well as mini weeds. I want you to know that a productive garden can still have quite a few weeds, so don't beat yourself up if you've got some in yours. And moving down the row, we have this tomato that desperately needs to be staked, so I'm glad I came out here to check this out. Sorry. And the tomato fell on this pepper that again has weeds. So I've got to get out in the garden this week and take care of some of this. But we have some more peppers here as well, and another tomato that also needs to be staked. I got a lot of kids, so sometimes it's just survival of the fittest out here. This bed doesn't look super great, but you know, we'll be fine. And we've got a little honeybee here that is proving why I love cosmos so much. So I've got a bed full of those. These reseed, so if it is not something that you want, you definitely want to pick the little plants when they come back up. But I love cosmos. And these last 4 beds have nothing in them. In fact, I need to dig up this one, but there were a bunch of fire ants in this when we tried to dig up the potatoes, and they are still here, so nobody is going to stick their hand in that. I will be putting some boiling water on top of this, and we might just have to sacrifice any potatoes that are in here in order to make this bed safe. But we pulled out potatoes from this bed. In fact, we've got a couple here that didn't make it inside. Some of them were big, some of them were small, but we pulled some potatoes out of here, and my plan is to put some sunspot sunflowers in here. I don't really want to put another vegetable in here that I've got to deal with. In years past, when I only had, 1.5, 2 kids, I would just be really planting out this garden before we had more kids and before we had more animals. But now we kind of get 1 planting in the spring, 1 planting in the fall, and when it's done, I'm going to be putting in something very easy like a sweet potato, or very simple like a sunflower or something like that. So we're probably going to put the sunflowers in here and call that a day, but that is why there's nothing in here. I'll get you up a little closer to the plants here in a minute, but this gives you a pretty good overview of the garden. So these first 2 rows are really going to be the vegetables. And we did plant out vegetables and flowers all throughout all 4 rows previously in previous years. But this year I really decided something had to give. The starting of the seeds constantly, the annual work with annual vegetables, it was just becoming a little bit too much. So I did decide that we were only going to be doing our vegetables in these front 2 rows, and then the back 2 were going to be for perennials. And I'll show you what we chose to do back there in just a second, but this is our last row of vegetables. And while that may seem like that's a lot of space that's wasted, If you've ever had toddlers, you know that you're spending almost half your paycheck on berries, so the kids are not going to miss these vegetables. And I feel like there's a chance that we're going to have a much more productive garden with me being able to really focus in on these 2 rows instead of being spread really thin with all 4. So in this first bed, we've got bush beans. I'm telling you, you're going to be totally sick of me because we plant a ton of them. And then I have also got some cosmos down here. The chickens got in here and they did rip up some of the beans, so I just threw some flowers in and called it a day. And then here they had done the same thing, but I decided to do a later planting of some bush beans. So we've got a lot of stuff going on. We've got some bush beans, but also a zinnia. So it's just a big mismatch of things. And, you know, to be honest, sometimes that grows the best food. So we're kind of moving heavily into where we have most of our peppers and tomatoes. I've actually got some here that I'm going to take in. I'll show you one. So I really like to bring in my tomatoes. I don't like to keep them. I'm going to try to get down here. I've been having some knee problems, so that's why I'm not getting down in the garden. Good thing I have raised beds. I really like to bring these in when they're looking like this, when they have just started to turn color here, so that they're not getting eaten by all the pests as they get nice and red. I would love to let them vine ripen, but it just doesn't work here with all of our pest pressure. And in this bed, we have got mainly peppers. I did sprinkle in 2 bush beans on either side, and we've got a wasp over here who's trying to pollinate, so that's fun. But I do have peppers here. We've got, I think, 2 hot peppers and 2 sweet peppers, and then some determinate tomatoes over here. So let me show you. We've got some peppers that are coming along nicely. This is looking really good. And then we've got one over here, and we've even got some jalapeno in here. I don't know if you can see that. Yeah, so they're looking really good. And then over here, I've got some bush beans planted in the holes, some here. And then we've got a determinate tomato here that I've staked up. It needs a little bit more support, as well as this one that's falling over. So that is telling me that he also needs support. Another bush bean, and then more tomatoes. My beds, basically, it's the same thing over and over. When I'm doing these determinate tomatoes, I'm doing 2 in a bed, so 1 in each corner to give them lots of room for airflow, because as you can see with this one, it is doing the most and really going everywhere. So it's just easier to stake them and give them the love that they need when they're a little bit more spread out, because I could put a stake over here and bring this branch over here. But if I had 4 in here, it just becomes really crowded. And then moving down this way, it is more bush beans and some pole beans. It is okay if you grow things that work for where you live. It's okay if you don't have this massive variety. I think that's fun, but in busy seasons like this, when I've got a lot of kids and a lot of animals and we are just in the thick of it, having things that are just going to grow really well is so much simpler for me than having a bunch of fun varieties that I don't know if they're going to produce really well or be worth that time that I'm putting in. The pole beans are growing so nicely up this trellis. These are the rattlesnake. I actually do not prefer these, even though they're gorgeous. They just, for me, don't produce as well. Let's see if I can get this to focus. They just don't produce as well for me as the Blue Lake, so I do prefer those, but I had them and they will still cook up just fine. So I've got those here, and then I am using this for an indeterminate tomato that is doing fantastic. Just an indeterminate guy from the box store, doing so well, and another one here with this massive clump of bush beans back here. Down here you can see that we've got some cucumbers. Let's see if there are any over there. Another sad rose bush. Please tell me what I'm supposed to do with these things, because I don't know. So I decided to have this cucumber come out. I've got some leaves that have some disease that I need to chop off, but otherwise this thing looks pretty healthy. Normally I would have this climb up the trellis, but because we decreased the amount of space we were working with, I decided to just let it come out and take up the whole bed. But other than this, it's looking pretty healthy. Let's chat for a minute about these other 2 rows. So we decided that we were going to change things up and we were going to put some perennials back here, but I knew I still wanted to grow food, and I wanted to grow something that if we moved, if we left this property and got a different one, that somebody would hopefully be glad to have in their garden, and they would have a jump start. And so we decided to do blackberries and blueberries. Blackberries grow so well here. I feel like they grow well everywhere, and blueberries also do pretty well. So for this entire row, we have planted it with blackberries. Now we got bare root blackberry starts from Burpee, and they're doing great. This is the Prime Arc Freedom variety. I did a lot of research and I saw a lot of people growing them well in containers. So we filled up this soil to a good level, added a little bit of mulch on top, and got the bare roots in, and they are looking fantastic. And then on this side, we decided to do blueberries. Now I do not have every single bed filled up with blueberries yet, but that was the plan. Now, because we're kind of getting more into the heat, I'm not sure if I'm going to do that or if I'm going to propagate some of our sweet potatoes in here and then next year add more blueberries or flowers, or just leave those open for whoever might want to garden after we are done here. And as far as the blueberries, we got whatever our garden center had. Our local garden center, we just picked the healthiest looking blueberry plants and got whatever they had. So I'm not sure on varieties, but they're all doing really, really well. I hope that this garden tour has been helpful for you or fun to watch in some way. I really enjoy gardening, but to be honest, I don't have as much time to spend in the garden as I have in previous years. So I'm doing what I can to just grow really simple things, things that thrive on neglect and can kind of do their own thing with me only coming out here a couple times a week to check on them. They're just going to grow on their own, and we can reap the benefit of that with minimal work. If you liked this video, would you like it? Comment, go ahead and subscribe if you want to. And if you did enjoy this video, I really think you'd like this one, all on my lazy gardening tips. I just shot off as many gardening tips as I could think of from a lazy gardener's perspective on how to have a great harvest with minimal effort. So I think you'd enjoy that video, and until next time, I hope you're having a great day, and I will see you later.